What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined by you guys once again. We're flying solo one last day before our boy producer Nick Belsky returns tomorrow. Highly anticipated return. I know everybody is excited, not as excited as everybody is for Hard Knocks tonight, but before we get there is plenty to talk about. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers gave a very promising injury report today that is highlighted by Alex Highsmith, but does not stop there. Meanwhile, Mike Tomlin had words. He sent a stern message to George Pickens. Now, a former Pittsburgh Steelers rival is sending words and advice to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 23-year-old wide receiver, can the Pittsburgh Steelers bring back a familiar face for a playoff push at the wide receiver position? Well, they might have an opportunity to do so. And, well, maybe we're diving into Christmas Day a little bit. I know it's early. I know it's not Christmas yet. It's only December 3rd. But people are talking about how the Pittsburgh Steelers might make a splash. And I think we should dive into it. As always, toss your questions in the chat. I will answer all of them before the end of the show. And it is Overreaction Tuesday. So obviously we're sticking with Overreaction Tuesday. And I have to thank all of you guys because you gave me some fantastic overreactions. I haven't checked any of them, so I don't know if they're fantastic, but I'm going to believe that they're fantastic. And they are all on our community page now. I'm going to go through all of them, give my overreaction or underreaction for this one. And again, I haven't read any of them, so I'm excited. Let's dive into it. The Pittsburgh Steelers got some good news. Alex Highsmith is set to return this week against the Cleveland Browns. People will ask, well, what does that mean for Nick Herbig? I think it means more for TJ Watt. The Pittsburgh Steelers will look to utilize all of their rushers to swap Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and TJ Watt around the field and be able to be more versatile and dynamic between the three of them. This should open the door for TJ Watt a little bit more, should open the door for Alex Highsmith. And Nick Herbig, man, is making play after play after play this season, and you got to love it. I don't know if everybody saw Mike Tomlin grab him on the sideline and the mic'd up where he said, you know, you're built for this. This is no surprise. You're built for this. That was an awesome emotional moment and one that was well-deserved, but I do anticipate this being more for TJ Watt and more of an upgrade for TJ Watt than anybody else. Not a downgrade for Nick Herbig. More so the Pittsburgh Steelers getting to use 3 pass rushers that they will love to use, and then Preston Smith coming off the bench as well, who is still becoming a force within this defense, but I think the upside is still pretty big there with him and the front 7 and really the edge rushers as a whole. Corey Trice and Montravius Adams have an opportunity to return. Corey Trice has until Wednesday, I believe, for that 21-day window to close. Tomorrow is massive, massive. The Pittsburgh Steelers would love to have Corey Trice back. Where you're going to put him, I think, becomes a question because he's got to be better than James Pierre on special teams, and I don't know if that's the case right now because the sample size is so small, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to give him one last opportunity to test himself tomorrow before making a final decision there. I've heard he's healthy. Now it's just a matter of the Pittsburgh Steelers deciding that they will bring him back. Let's keep it going here with some advice. This is what everybody wants to talk about. This is why everybody's coming to the show today. Because a former Pittsburgh Steelers rival turned podcast host, turned NFL analyst, turned always wearing sunglasses on the screen, talking head, I guess, is sending advice or wants to send advice to George Pickens. Somebody is Chad Johnson, a.k.a. Ocho Cinco, who said on his podcast, The Nightcap with Shannon Sharp, quote, I'm going to talk to him. Take some of that fun, some of that energy you display that you're being penalized for, and turn that into entertainment. It's okay being the villain. Embrace being the villain. Enjoy being the villain. But do it in a way that the organized chaos within the game of football. I see where he's coming from. And I have 2 sides to this argument. I have the side that says you're walking a dangerous line here, pal, if you are going to become the villain with a guy who is already causing some problems character-wise. And with the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, I don't know if playing the villain in that instance with that position group and in the way that Chad Johnson is kind of hinting at is the smart idea, right? The Steelers, Art Rooney, Mike Tomlin, they love the villain. I don't know if they love the villain that is hated by the entire NFL and not just the Baltimore Ravens or the Cincinnati Bengals or the Cleveland Browns, that is hated by all of the fans across the league. I don't know if that's the distraction that they necessarily want within their building. Now you can be a villain and just be a villain that, yeah, you get flagged and you're a bit of a showboat. And that's okay. You know, you're allowed to be. I think everybody should be. And I think that I saw a bunch of memes where people are talking about Jerry Jeudy's touchdown celebration. If that was George Pickens, he's getting kicked out of the game. I agree. I think George Pickens has put a target on his back that the NFL is taking very seriously. Do I think it's 100% fair? Probably not. But that's the NFL. It's not always fair. I think you're walking a fine line. I don't think Art Rooney and the organization would be very, very thrilled to be in the presence of the next Chad Johnson. And I think Chad Johnson was a phenomenal wide receiver. I think George Pickens has an opportunity to be even better. But I don't think that the Steelers would have wanted Chad Johnson and all the nonsense that came with him in Pittsburgh. And I'm not saying, and I'm not too sure that they would want it in George Pickens. That being said, maybe that's the way to go. Maybe it is the way to go. Maybe it's organized chaos, just like Chad Johnson says. Maybe it's a way for George Pickens to make this happen, to spread all his chaos, to be a showboat, to taunt, to use that attitude that he brings, because that's what this is. He's got an attitude, man. He thinks he is on top of the world, and he should be. He's the most athletic human being in football, like hands down. It's crazy. And he's a phenomenal football player who's making millions of dollars, is set to make even more money, way more money, is 23 years old, so his career is just getting started, and he seems to be getting better and better and better every opportunity he gets to prove that. You want to be a villain, man? You want to show off? You want to do all that stuff? Great. But I agree in the way of making organized chaos where it's entertainment and not taunting, because that is the line you have to walk if you're George Pickens from here on out. If you are going to be the guy that has a target on his back, and I agree with Chad here. I agree with Chad Johnson. If you are going to be that guy, if that is the persona that you are going to take on and the energy that you are going to play with, just turn it into you are doing wild celebrations. You are putting on a show for the fans. That's what you're doing. You're getting everybody riled up. Bring everybody in with you. Bring the chaos from the fans, or that you are bringing out, bring it to the fans. Let the fans jump in with you. But don't direct it at other teams. I think that is very important here. I think that is what Chad Johnson is trying to get across. And if that could be done well in the correct manner, I think it's very good advice, actually. I do. I really look at it and say, maybe that's what George Pickens needs to hear. Now, I think the easier way to go about this is to really just mature and not taunt fans and not get in the face of players and not get angry during games. And I don't know how easy that is. I've never played in the NFL. I've never been good enough to play in the NFL. So therefore, I don't know what it takes emotionally to be involved in that game. But I do know there are a billion other players that do not get in trouble for this. And I think George Pickens can probably do the same. But if he's not going to, I think this advice actually is pretty good advice. And it's crazy to admit that Chad Johnson's given pretty good advice in this instance, in this area of the game. But I think he is giving some good advice. Next on the list. Do you think Deontay Johnson could come back to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Do you think that could really happen? Do you really think that the Pittsburgh Steelers could get a shot to trade Deontay Johnson for Deontay Jackson in the offseason, have Deontay Jackson lead the team in interceptions, and somehow before the playoffs, where you really desperately need another wide receiver to really just take you over that hump, you have a shot at the guy that was the perfect fit all along to be your number two if there's no issues on the field and there's no issues attitude-wise? Is that really going to happen? This is what Ravens coach John Harbaugh had to say about Deontay Johnson playing 0 snaps in the Ravens' loss to the Eagles. Quote, "At this time, I'm going to have to wait. There are some moving parts there that we're going to have to figure out and explore and see where we're at. It's the best I can do in fairness to everybody." I don't know about you, but I took that. I heard it. I was watching the press conference live when it happened. And I just looked at it and said, I think Deontay Johnson's getting released before the end of the bye week. The Ravens are on a bye right now. They're going to come back. They're going to reassess everything. It clearly does not sound like they want him on the roster right now. So why not go hit the free agency market? And it's different because his contract is lower. And I don't know if it reverts back, to his last contract, or if it's, no, I guess he has not been released this season. I apologize for that. He was traded. So he'd have to go through waivers. Chances are he would go through waivers. He'd clear waivers, and he would have an opportunity to sign elsewhere. And there are probably teams that are going to make an offer. Why would the Pittsburgh Steelers not be one? There is one reason, and that is George Pickens. That is the only reason. You have one guy who you are already concerned with. You traded Deontay Johnson because you were concerned about the character issues within your wide receiver room. Well, you went out and you got Van Jefferson. You went out and you got Mike Williams. You went out and you got Scotty Miller and Michael Pruitt and Cordero Patterson and then Russell Wilson and Justin Fields to bring all this veteran leadership to your organization and to your offense and hope to cure the character issues that are happening within those rooms. Have you done enough? This is the big question. Have you done enough where it can be cured if you bring back somebody who maybe was pushing it in the wrong direction? Did you do enough there? I think if the Steelers did, which I think Russell Wilson plays a massive part in this. I do. I don't know if Russell Wilson would make a massive difference with Deontay Johnson, but I think I'd feel better about him making a difference with Deontay than with George. And if you could just protect one of them, if you could figure out one of them, you only have to worry about the other. And that leaves you right where you are right now, where all you got to worry about is George. So did you do enough? I think Russell Wilson might have been enough. When it comes to talent, it makes all the sense in the world. Deontay Johnson is still a starting caliber wide receiver in the NFL. I don't care that he's got drop issues. I don't care that everybody's going to come up with every name under the book to call him with the name or with the word drop in it in the comment section. What I know is that Deontay Johnson is still a good wide receiver in the NFL. What I know is that he is familiar with Pittsburgh. He'd obviously have to learn a new playbook, but hopefully he can figure that out faster than Mike Williams can. Okay, great. If he could do that, he comes in here. I mean, he's what you're missing in Pittsburgh. He is that guy that's always open. That could be a check down short throw option for Russell Wilson. That clears up George Pickens over the top and over the middle. And it makes your offense just have a whole other element that is not being utilized right now. It is exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers need on the field. Off the field, totally different conversation. You have concerns, obviously. But if you feel good enough, if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers and you feel good enough when it comes to the off the field stuff and keeping it together, on the field, why not? You could sign him for nothing. You can get him for $1 million, maybe $2 million, I guess, if you really have to ball out. But I would imagine Deontay Johnson is not going for anything more than the vet minimum this season. He's in a contract year, so who cares? He's looking for money next year. He understands this year didn't go great. He would like to go somewhere where he believes he can thrive for the rest of this year so that he could sign a contract next year, because he's going to have to sign a 1-year prove-it deal somewhere. Why not add on to that prove-it deal with 5 or 6 more games plus maybe a playoff run? He's been in Pittsburgh forever. He had nothing but great things to say about Mike Tomlin and everybody else in that locker room. It just feels like it might fit. I'm not saying it's the perfect match, but what I am saying is that it really, really might fit. And if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm making an offer the second that he clears waivers and just saying, hey, dude, come on, talk to Russell Wilson, let him know exactly what's going on and go from there. I feel good about it. I don't know how you guys feel. I don't know how everybody else feels. I feel like Deontay Johnson could be an answer here. I expect him to get released from the Ravens. Nobody just says those things. John Harbaugh does not just say those things. You don't just say, oh, there's moving parts, but I can't say what those moving parts are. When those moving parts are not, we're trying to get rid of him. That's just, what are we doing here? Unless they're going to surprise us and get rid of somebody else, which if that's the case, cool. Go grab Tylan Wallace. Why not? Go get Rashad Bateman. Why not? Nelson Aguilar. Why not? If that's who the Ravens are going to go get rid of, go get those guys. But it's going to be Deontay Johnson. You got to feel it's going to be Deontay Johnson. And if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think I'd make him. I think I'd make an offer. All right, last on the list before we dive into Overreaction Tuesday. Very excited to. I'm excited to just straight jump in these raw, see what happens with these overreactions. I think there were 15 of them, so that makes for a great time. Good Morning had so much to say about Pittsburgh Steelers and their opportunity to beat the Chiefs. And really, just to summarize it, you could say that everybody on Good Morning America now believes that the Pittsburgh Steelers might be favored over the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Quote, hey, question real quick. Chiefs at Steelers on Netflix Christmas Day. I think the Steelers might be favored in this game if this game was played tomorrow. What would you guys say about that right now? That's how much different these two teams look right now. Quote, I don't have to say yes. The Steelers have to be favored. Just because they're playing lights out offensively, the Chiefs aren't playing lights out anything. I have, again, two thoughts here. The first thought is simple, and I'll keep this kind of short so that we can get into some overreactions and get this party started. The first one is kind of simple. Nobody should be favored over the Chiefs at all this season during the regular season until the football gods stop handing the Chiefs wins. I mean, just plain and simple. Until the Chiefs lose one of these chaotic, nonsense, should not win games, they cannot be favored, or they cannot be not favored. Why? Because all we're seeing right now is that even when they should lose, they win. You got to favor them. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the Pittsburgh Steelers losing to the Chiefs on Christmas Day. I really am. And I know that's crazy to say. I know that does not help much of anything. But I'm a dude that truly believes that the energy adds up. The vibes they're gonna get there. Something's gonna break. The Chiefs, man, the Chiefs are running out of good luck. And at some point they're gonna run out and it's gonna be over. And if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I'm me supporting the Pittsburgh Steelers, because the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to want this, but if I'm me supporting the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they beat the Chiefs on Christmas Day, awesome. If they don't, that's okay. Why? Because it just means that the Chiefs are getting closer and closer to the playoffs before that luck runs out. And I'm sorry, but that luck's not going to last through the postseason. It's just not. So if you're okay with winning later, losing now is okay. I truly believe that. They're getting away with too much nonsense. It doesn't happen like this. It never happens like this. The hottest team in football going into the playoffs is the team that wins the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are by far the hottest team, or by far not the hottest team, excuse me. And look at it. If that's where we got to go, that's where we got to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, let's dive into Overreaction Tuesday. I'm going to dive into all 15 of these overreactions. I'm pumped about it. Then I'm going to answer all of your questions. Very excited about that as well. First, we're going to take a quick break, hear from our boys over at Game Time. Football season is on fire right now, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, well, they're looking pretty good, and I don't think there's anything that brings more excitement right now than thinking about going to the game. And right now, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. Game Time Picks features out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Obviously, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns, round 2 is red hot, but you could go to Christmas Day, Philadelphia, if you're really feeling feisty, in Cincinnati and Baltimore, both on the radar and the upcoming schedule for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me tell you why Game Time is incredible. They have a couple of things. First, the Game Time Picks, which curates to make it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc., all in pricing, which shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views to get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you ever buy. The lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time ticket coverage, which means your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Shout out our boys over at Game Time. All right. You know what time it is.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business, and sometimes it's very subtle.
Shout out. Overreaction Tuesday starts now. We got 15 of them. 15. This is the most ever on this show this season. Very excited about them. I'm going straight off the comments, straight off the rips. They were on the community page. We got 15 of them. We're going to see what happens here. I have not read a single one of them, but I'm very excited. Let's kick it off. Mike Williams goes off for 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns against the Browns on Sunday. You got to think that one's an overreaction, my friend. You gotta. You cannot think about Mike Williams and what he has done and how Mike Tomlin just said it's only a matter of time. Mike, we've heard that a million times, bro. We knew it was coming out of your mouth, just like we knew absolutely not was coming out of your mouth when they asked if you're going to watch Hard Knocks tonight. Mike Williams, he's a ways away. I hope closer than I believe, but I do not believe he's close enough to have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. I think George Pickens might have 404 touchdowns, and I think that would be closer than Mike Williams going for 102 tutties on that one. Got to go. Overreaction to start these things off. Number 2, Justin Fields will be QB1 next season. I'll say this, not an overreaction. Likely, probably not, but not an overreaction. And those are two different things. You got to look at it and say the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to weigh both options. They want both quarterbacks to stay. That's probably not going to happen. Okay, well, what happens over the course of the rest of this season? If Russ is great, he's the quarterback next year, and he takes a team-friendly deal, he's guaranteed to be the quarterback next year. If he's not that great to end the season, which, I mean, is unlikely, but you never know, then he's gone and Justin gets the first opportunity. Overreaction? No. Likely? Probably not. Number 3, Steelers go on a 5-game winning streak. This is also not an overreaction, okay? But you got to look at it and say it's not an overreaction only because the Steelers are a good football team. But it feels like an overreaction because Philadelphia is in there, Kansas City's in there, Cincinnati is there at the end of the season, which they're going to be looking to play spoiler. Cleveland's in there one more time, which I feel really good about this Sunday, but you just never know when a team playing for their Super Bowl, as the Browns are going to be once again. I would say it's not an overreaction. It's walking the line. And if this was a game earlier, I'd say it's an overreaction maybe. But this is not an overreaction. It could happen. It'd be crazy if it did, but it could happen. If the Steelers win out this season, they are Super Bowl favorites, considering they beat the Eagles, Chiefs, and Ravens back to back to back. I would say in the AFC, yes. If you beat the Chiefs, if you beat the Ravens, if you beat the Eagles back to back to back, you go on a 5-game winning streak to end this season. I think in the AFC, you're the favorite to win the Super Bowl. I think the Lions are still the favorite to win the Super Bowl. But I think the Steelers are number 2, and I think they're looking really good. And I think a lot of people will give the Mike Tomlin effect. And once you win in the playoffs, again, that's going to be the challenge, is you're going to have to play Kansas City again. You're going to have to play Baltimore, Buffalo again, most likely. That's tough. That's tough. But I do think people would say that. I would say that's not an overreaction if they win out the rest of the season. Oh, gosh. Justin Tucker has been more valuable to the Steelers this year than Chris Boswell. Oh, man, dude. I hate laughing at other people's demise, but they say that's what brings people together. And Justin Tucker, man, is not playing good. I don't think Justin Tucker is a top 32 kicker in the NFL right now. He's still a Hall of Famer. He's the greatest to ever do it. But he's not a top 32 kicker where we currently stand. And I'm very much so okay, just like all of you should be very much so okay that the Baltimore Ravens are just ignoring this thing and saying, nah, I think we're good. We're going to stick with Justin Tucker. Okay, great. Yeah, you do that. You have a great time. I support that idea. Why? Because let him miss in the playoffs. Let him miss next week or 2 weeks from now against Pittsburgh. That's okay. That's fine. In the AFC North race, yeah, Justin Tucker's been real good, but I would say Chris Boswell, man. If they gave MVPs to kickers, I think he'd be right there with us. Right there with us. That's an overreaction. I think our second one of the day here. Overreaction. I still have no idea who we truly are, and winning out and winning the Super Bowl is just as likely as losing out and missing the playoffs. Oh, I would say that's an overreaction. Winning the Super Bowl is much more likely than losing out and missing the playoffs at this point. I mean, the Steelers are just a good team. And at the same time, they're not going to lose to the Browns again. You got to believe. And even though Jameis Winston, man, looks unbelievable. Unbelievable right now. Not great, but just wild. And his post-game press conferences are awesome. I don't care what anybody says. And the Bengals stink. The Bengals are terrible. And then you play the Ravens again. You got to go overreaction on that one. You can't feel good about the Steelers losing out. I just think that's almost 0 to none on that. Overreaction on that one. Russell Wilson is playing better than Patrick Mahomes this season, and we will beat the Chiefs in the playoffs because of how well Russ is playing. There are 2 parts to this, okay? The Steelers beating the Chiefs in the playoffs is not an overreaction, obviously. I just explained why with the running out of luck thing. But I think walking the line way more on that. Russ being better than Patrick Mahomes, certainly not an overreaction. Certainly not an overreaction. I think Russ is playing like the best quarterback in the AFC North right now, outside of Josh Allen. He might be the best quarterback in the AFC right now. Maybe even him, Bo Nix, and Josh Allen are 1, 2, 3. That's crazy to say. Justin Herbert. He's very good as well. But I don't think that's an overreaction. I mean, Russ is playing good. Patrick Mahomes, my friend, not playing good. And that's great to see. It's great to see for anybody who isn't a Chiefs fan or who isn't the Chiefs in general. That's not an overreaction. Overreaction, Joey Porter Jr. will most definitely improve, but after this not so great game against Cincinnati, the receiver he will be covering will only have 1 reception in each game. This includes all the way to the Super Bowl. Oof. That one's got to be an overreaction. I mean, it's a fun thought. It would be awesome to watch. I love Joey. I think Joey's a phenomenal person, a great player, works his butt off. You got to love all 3 of those things. To me, he checks off. He's the type of dude that he walks in the cafeteria and gives everybody a smile. You know what I mean? That's the type of dude Joey Porter Jr. is. Works so hard. I mean, you got to give it to him. But I don't think he's covering Jerry Jeudy again, Jamar Chase again, or I guess T. Higgins again. I mean, anybody in Kansas City, that's probably your best one. A.J. Brown, I don't know, man. I don't know about that one. I think at that point, that is an overreaction. He's going to be good. I love Joey. I think he's going to be great, but I think that's an overreaction. Overreaction. TJ will have 3 sacks and a touchdown against the Browns. What's to say that's probably an overreaction for any other player besides TJ Watt? You know, that's no chance, that would never happen. It's TJ Watt. What says it couldn't? You know, the Steelers scored a defensive touchdown last week. What says they can't do it again this week? It's Cleveland. They're going to be looking to win. They're going to be looking to get some revenge on that. What's to say that doesn't happen again? I would say that is very, 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 very close. But TJ Watt's gotten 3 sacks and touchdowns before, and I could see him doing it again. Overreaction. Steelers take out Browns, Eagles, Chiefs, and Ravens again. First playoff game is guaranteed. Lions lose to any of the remaining games, and we are absolutely neck and neck with Lions and Bills for the top contender of the NFL. Whew, that's a lot going on right there. I still think that's an overreaction. I don't think you're neck and neck with Detroit. I don't think anybody could be neck and neck with Detroit right now. I think you could be close, but I think Detroit is head and shoulders above everybody else. And even if they lose a game between now and the end of the season, they are the Super Bowl favorite. They got to be. I will say, though, if you didn't toss the word absolutely, if you didn't toss the words Browns, Eagles, Chiefs, and Ravens, and the first playoff game is guaranteed, I think that's not an overreaction, but it's just too much there. Too much in the sauce. That's an overreaction. Oh, man, this one's a heartbreaker. Overreaction. The Steelers will finish the 2 seed, but will lose their first playoff game and continue the playoff drought. How could you say that's not an overreaction? How could you say that's an overreaction? You can't. They could get the 2 seed, but until they win a playoff game, it's not an overreaction to say they're going to lose again. I don't think that's an overreaction. It sucks to say. Do I believe it? No. I think they got a really good shot to win a playoff game, depending on who they play. But you can't sit here and say that that's a definite. You definitely can't say that that's a definite. It's hard to say, but not an overreaction. Overreaction Tuesday. George Pickens will get a 4-year, $104 million deal this season. That, as of right now, that's an overreaction. I just don't think you could sign George Pickens. I don't think the Steelers think they could sign George Pickens this offseason unless character issues drastically improve. I don't think we'll ever know if they're going to. You know, I don't. I think it'll be all inside, and Mike Tomlin will make that decision. So I'll say this, not an overreaction, but I don't think that's very likely where we stand right now. 4 years, $104 million, maybe a little bit low end for what George Pickens is going to want, but I think very possible. I'm not going to say that's an overreaction. I do think it's very close, though. Overreaction. If Jill makes the banana thing for the team for Christmas, the Chiefs will not need the refs to win. Shout out Pat Fryermuth, man. I'm excited to get to the locker room tomorrow and hear his reaction to that one. I've heard his girlfriend's very nice. Pat's the man. So that was awesome. That is awesome. And we'll finish it off with this one from these ones, and then I think we got a couple in the comments here. Overreaction. Joey Porter Jr. and George Pickens will continue to hurt the team with penalties for the remainder of the season, man. That is not an overreaction either, and that sucks to say. Why are we doing this, people? Why are we bringing the brutality here today? That's not an overreaction. You got to think that it's going to happen throughout the season. I think it's neither of them are doing it intentionally. Neither of them think they're doing anything wrong. You got to give both of them the benefit of the doubt there, but I don't think that's an overreaction to say that either of them are going to hurt the team for the remainder of the season. All right, I think we got a couple here. Overreaction to think many teams can beat Philly right now. I agree with you. I don't think it's an overreaction. Philly is phenomenal. They are a great team. I think the Steelers got a shot, but in Philly, that's going to be a tough one, man. That's going to be a tough one. Overreaction Tuesday. We need a white defensive back. Cooper DeJean, my friend. Everybody who's been around long enough knows how much Cooper DeJean was my guy. And when I watched him tackle Derrick Henry last night, all I kept thinking, or 2 nights ago, was, man, that would have looked really good in black and gold. He would have looked real good if he was wearing a black and gold jersey there, tackling Derrick Henry like that. That's all I'm going to say. Cooper DeJean, my friend. I knew it. I knew it was coming. All right, let's make sure I did not miss any of these before I dive into questions. I do not believe that I did. So with that said, we're going to dive into all your questions. I appreciate everybody. If you got them, toss them in the chat. We'll answer all of them before we head out of here. I'm going to start here with a sip of water because I'm dying over here. Cody Silva. Joey Porter Jr. only gave up 33 yards. Got to use all of your fouls on Shaq, number 97, defensive player of the year. I'll say this. I saw people. I did not go to Tomlin today. I got a sick cat, unfortunately. We're situating it, but somebody's got to watch her. So I was home. I was watching the press conference on my laptop, and I had the comment section up, the live chat feed, and somebody said 97 only played X amount of snaps, that fat ass or whatever. And all my thought was, dude, he's 35 years old. Yeah, he plays limited snaps. He should. And his impact on those limited snaps is still ridiculous. So all that means is that for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they just got to add somebody else who could be ridiculous while he's being ridiculous. That way that you never lose the ridiculousness. But Cam Hayward's the man, dude. The man. And deserves every piece of that paycheck that he got this offseason. Every single one of them. George Pickens cut the reindeer games, quote unquote, Roger Goodell. Shout out Eddie the Great, who's always got a phenomenal comment. I hope everybody is watching on YouTube and not listening to this somewhere, because I hope you get to see that one. Going to my first Steelers game on Xmas for the first time in the city, from Egypt to Pittsburgh. What's good to eat and golf? Love the show. Dude, that is awesome. I will tell you this right off the bat. You are coming in December, which means golf ain't going to happen. It's going to be cold. It's going to be snowy probably. It is not going to be golf weather. Not even close. That being said, I believe it's called, oh man, dude, it's in Market Square. So look up, everybody downtown will tell you where Market Square is. It is a golf simulator. I wish I had the card. They gave me a free like hour or something at one point. So shout out them. They're awesome. But I would look up that golf simulator. They got great food. It's great vibes in there, and it's a lot of fun. That's for the golf. For the food, dude, you got to go to Permanis if you're coming to Pittsburgh. If you're coming to Pittsburgh one time, you have to. Even if it's not the best food in the city, you have to come to Permanis. Food-wise, dude, I'd go all the hot spots. There's phenomenal Thai food out here. So go to Noodlehead. That place smacks. I think the pizza's average, but people love the pizza. So if you're just looking for good Pittsburgh, we're eating here one time, Rockaway Pizza, which will be in Regent Square by the time you get out here, most likely. And then Minio's. I don't like Minio's, but it's like the spot. So go there. But when Nick's back, I'm going to remember this and we'll put in my notes, and we're going to come up with some good ones for you. We'll end the season 4-1, only losses to Philly. I would take that. I think a win over Philly is the most impressive win you could have for the rest of the season. But I think this is a good one because, I mean, if you finish 4-1, you beat the Chiefs, you beat the Ravens, so you win the AFC North, you probably get the 2 seed pushing for the 1 seed. I'd feel pretty good about where the Pittsburgh Steelers stand at that point. And if the loss to Philly's close, I'd feel even better. All right. Really? Deontay Johnson coming back. So there are other questions here that I want to make sure. And I lost it. But there were questions about Deontay Johnson being able to come back. Can he actually come back to the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though here it is. I thought Deontay Johnson couldn't come back to Pittsburgh after they traded him away. So the Steelers cannot acquire Deontay Johnson through a trade for 2 years. That is not what they could do. However, they could sign him, and they've done this before, and they'll probably do it again in the past or in the future. But Josh Dobbs spent about 4 weeks in Jacksonville and then ended up back in Pittsburgh after being traded for a 5th-round pick, which was hell of a move by Kevin Colbert, my friend. And that's what could happen here. As long as he passes through waivers, which I think the Steelers could still try to claim him off of waivers, but I don't believe that they would do that. He can sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It only has to do with trading and him not being able to return through a trade for the next 2 years. That's what this is. Do you think Coach Tomlin and Arthur Smith are closet podcast listeners and actually listen to what Steelers Nation is thinking and saying? It seems a lot of things talked about were addressed on Sunday. No, I think that a lot of things we highlight are the things that they highlight. I also think that people get really mad at the reporters that are in that press conference. And I think a lot of questions are, what are we doing here, pal? Why do we need to ask these questions? But I also think a lot of questions are, this is good. And this is what the fans want to know. And Mike Tomlin and everybody else listens. They don't care what we think, but they also acknowledge that, yeah, if everybody else sees it, maybe we should look into this as well. Mike Tomlin's never listened to a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast in his life. I can promise you that one. Arthur Smith, maybe, but Mike Tomlin, definitely not. Do you think that the Steelers will look to bring back Russell Wilson, or do you think that Russell Wilson will be back with the Steelers? I do. Where we stand right now, I would guess Russell Wilson's going to try to come back to Pittsburgh. I think a lot of people are talking about Baker Mayfield contract, $35 million, blah, 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 blah. Maybe. But to be very honest, I don't know. I could see a team-friendly deal. I think Russ wants to win Super Bowls at this point in his career. I think he wants his legacy to be good. I think he wants to trust the organization that he is in. And that's Pittsburgh right now, and I think it's going to stay Pittsburgh. No, you go to the game Sunday. I'm traveling from Virginia to see my first Steelers game. That is awesome, dude. Hopefully it will be a W. I got a good feeling you're about to see a good game, my buddy, my friend Matt. I went to read your name and say a word at the same time. That's why it came out so awkward. But I think you will see. I think you will see W. That's my hope. That's going to be my prediction on Friday. I'll tease it right now. I am going to the game. I go to every game. I'll be chilling up in the box. Stay warm, my friend. Bring some hand warmers. Drink some brews if you're 21. You know what I mean? Warm the soul, warm the hands. You'll be good. And I think it'll be a good one. I do think it'll be a good one. What are the chances the Bengals don't play their starters the last game of the year? I would say slim to none. Slim to none. Because they're not going to be in a spot where it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter in the wrong way. So they'll play their guys. They might not play them all season or all game, but they will play them. I think at that point, the Steelers might be competing for a playoff spot, but they might not be. And really, 2 and 3 would be what they're competing for. I don't think 3 and 4 would be what they were competing for. I think at that point, they could really care less. Is Roman Wilson not going to play this year? If I had to guess, he is not going to play this year. I do not believe that he is in the Steelers' plans right now. I view Roman Wilson as a guy that is going to get a shot next season to prove himself and to be that guy for the Steelers. And I think he's a forgotten commodity when people talk about the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers and their wide receiver position. I like Roman Wilson. I think he's got a lot of talent. But as of right now, no, I do not expect him to play. Do you know what Mike Tomlin told Broderick Jones when Jones said, "You're mic'd up"? No, I do not. Wish I did. I could probably ask Broderick tomorrow. I don't think he'll tell me, but I could probably ask him. If nobody else is around, I think there's a shot at he tells me. And if it's not bad enough, I'll probably tell you guys. If it's bad enough, we're going to avoid that altogether. Oh my gosh. At this point, dude, now you have to come, and now I think I have to be the one that buys you the Permani sandwich. So you let me know. Where's Cole Holcomb? He's chilling, my friend. He's looking somewhere for something. I don't know what, but he's looking for it. He's looking for it. All right, let me make sure. I'm going to scroll through all the comments here. Remember, if you guys got them, toss them in the chat. I'm going to answer all of them before we head out of here. I appreciate all you do. I appreciate you, my friend. With the success we had against Hendrickson, do you think we will still pay more attention to Garrett next week? I mean, you have to, right? Yeah, I think so. I think that a lot of times you do go back. Arthur Smith pointed out some good stuff. Like, it wasn't always Dan Moore. It was the fact that, like, Myles Garrett kind of got a little bit lucky at times. I mean, he still made great plays, but like Russ rolled into him with the fumble. You can't do that. There were a couple of them where, like, nah, you could probably protect better. You could probably do this better. You could probably do that better. But overall, like, it's not the worst. I think you could chip him every single play this upcoming week. I think you approach him like every team approaches TJ Watt. He never goes solo, ever. And if he could beat two guys, great. But if he can't, well, then that's okay. A lot of Detroit stuff here. What's the status on Roman Wilson? Just talked about that one. You also don't have, oh, we're talking George Pickens here. Anybody listening to the audio is going to love this one. Let me tell you. We need Nick back, my friend. He'll be back tomorrow. I'm excited for this one. There are a lot of comments, but I'm not missing any questions. What's happening with CJ? Thank you. What's happening with CJ Henderson? He's on IR right now. I don't think he's coming back this season. I think the Steelers look at CJ Henderson and say he's a talented guy who has a lot of upside and is still very young. So maybe they could get something out of him. I don't disagree with that notion. I don't disagree with that thought process there. I think they bring him back on like a futures reserves contract next year and just see if he works. And if he doesn't, okay, move on. But I do think that he will get an opportunity with Pittsburgh next year if he accepts it. He's only got he could sign a future reserves contract with anybody or a deal with anybody. But I think Pittsburgh would be a good spot for him. Oh, here we go. I need a fantasy quarterback this week. Russ or Jameis? I almost said Jameson with you. I'm going Russ, dude. I'm going Russ only because Jameis is going to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, but he might throw 3 interceptions too. And that's probably going to add up better for you. But that's a risk that he throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, where Russ isn't going to throw the interceptions, and he still has a shot to throw for 250 and 2 touchdowns. And at least that's a good day. And I think there's less risk there. Whereas a Jameis, downside is like 150 yards and like 3 interceptions. And that's very possible in a revenge game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What was the point of the Mike Williams trade? Why isn't he in there more? Mike Tomlin said that it's coming. It's going to happen. I don't know how to feel about it. The way we sit here right now, I'm not 100% sold Mike Williams is going to be out there much this season at all. But I'm not going to shut him down. I think Mike Williams is valuable. I think he's got to learn the playbook more. And I think the Steelers want to get him involved. But I think they have a weird fascination with everybody else that's out there already. Is there snow in the forecast this weekend? Coming from Tennessee to Pittsburgh for my first game. Dude, a lot of people coming for the first game. Shout out, you guys. That's awesome. Hope the weather isn't too terrible. I'll tell you this, Ricky. It's going to be cold. It's going to be cold. I don't think it's supposed to surpass 35 or 32 in like a week up here for you, I guess. So we'll see what happens. Bundle, my friend. Bundle. I got boys who come up from Texas, Florida, over from Cali all the time, and they are cold out here, dude. Cold. It's just like bone chilling cold. So bring a jacket, my friend. And if you don't got one, go buy one. Percentage chance of going cornerback in round 1. Don't forget our DB room is completely different from last season. Thompson, KZ, Rowe, Peter. I know, facts for real. I would say it's not off the board. If I had to guess, say the Steelers re-sign Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields. Their draft board round 1 to me is defensive tackle, wide receiver, corner, and it could go whoever the best available is. That would be my guess. Whoever the best available is will be the position that the Steelers will go with, which, that explains a lot of things. 2 years ago, Broderick was the best available 14. Joey Porter Jr. was hands down the best available at 32. Like, I mean, Troy Fautanu this year, which, I mean, Cooper DeJean, but I think Troy is a very good option as well. I would say a high percentage. I just split that into 33.33333 repeating. That's the percent chance. I think it's that wide receiver, defensive line, if the Pittsburgh Steelers re-sign one of their quarterbacks, which I believe they will. What are the chances Dan Moore and James Daniels are re-signed next year? Appreciate the content as always. Appreciate you, dude. I would say there's a higher chance that Dan Moore gets re-signed than James Daniels. The Steelers love Mason McCormick. Isaac Seumalo isn't going anywhere, and I think they'll draft somebody in the draft again this year. So that's the future there. James Daniels is unfortunately not going to come back to Pittsburgh. I don't believe. Dan Moore's got a shot, but I think Broderick Jones and how he finishes the season determines that shot. The Steelers will most likely want Broderick to be that guy. He's going to have to prove to be that guy, obviously, but Dan's going to get some money. He's not going to go for some low-end deal in Pittsburgh and say, oh, I'll come back for 1 year for like nothing. No, he's going to go get some money somewhere, and chances are that's not going to be Pittsburgh. I would say Dan's a higher chance than James Daniels, but not by much. Any updates on Fautanu? What possible plans do the Steelers have upon his return? I don't believe he's coming back this season. The door is open for the playoffs, but I highly doubt it. I still think that if he did return this season, he would not be the starter. They'd try to work him back in as fast as possible, but that's just a long way to go from not playing 90% of the season to coming back in your biggest game of the year and having to start over Broderick Jones. I don't think it's going to happen. If I had to guess, Troy is a next year thought, but the door is still open, certainly for the playoffs. How happy are you that Levi Wallace is gone after Monday Night Football against Judy? Yeah, it was rough, man. It was rough, but at the same time, Joey Porter Jr. didn't look too good against Jerry Jeudy either, so maybe Jerry Judy's just really good. I'll say this: Levi Wallace definitely wasn't the corner the Steelers needed. Deontay Jackson's much more of that. Levi Wallace was a good dude, though, and I did appreciate him being a good dude. Even with the tough times, he was a good dude always in Pittsburgh. Update on Calvin Austin III. He's in concussion protocol. He's got a clear concussion protocol by Sunday, which means that a neurologist will have to look at him Saturday to make sure that he's good to go. We won't really have any updates until then outside of his practice participation the next couple of days. And we'll, as Mike Tomlin says, let that be our guide. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. Long time listener, first time caller. Love the show. Appreciate you, dude. What are the chances we get into 800 plus yards and a shootout with Cleveland this Sunday? 800 plus yards between both teams is very possible. The Steelers getting 800 yards, I don't know about that one. That would be nuts. I think a shootout is possible, obviously, but I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be feeling pretty good about this one, and they're going to be pretty riled up. Block numbers are not an option. What's your favorite alternative uniform? I loved the gray face masks. If that does not count as block numbers, it's like the old school, which, I mean, if you're going to, depends on how you're putting them. You know what I mean? But the gray face masks alone fire me up. I love those ones. I love the black with the yellow, like the dark black with the yellow numbers. That's fire too. I to be honest with you, I hated the Bumblebees, but I respect the Bumblebees. And we've had this conversation before. There are players in that locker room who like the Bumblebees and would like to wear them one time. And I think all it would take was guys in the locker room to see them, to be like, never mind, I'm good. But they want them. I would say the gray, if you're not including that as the block numbers, I would say the gray face masks, old school retro jerseys, those are the throwback 70s jerseys. Those are my favorites. Listening from Melbourne, Australia. Love the content you provide here. Crazy story here, Corey. When I was in college, was a big lacrosse guy. I know. And take that as you will. I wasn't a lacrosse bro. They were always like, no, it's the ghetto lacrosse kid. Yeah. I thought about and had an opportunity to leave college, which was very much so on my mind, and go to Australia to play semi-pro lacrosse. That was a route I was very close to taking until I met with like a PR person, and they had to give me a rundown of all the dangerous animals over there, and like just to like kind of give me an understanding of the land. And I was immediately like, dude, I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize it was this. So I'm good. But could have been there, pal. Could have been there. Do you think they can use Ben Skoranek and Darnell Washington more in the here's the other part of this, in the passing game, or are they just going to be mainly used as pass blockers? They are blocking guys. They're both blocking guys. Darnell Washington, I think, is evolving as a pass catcher, which is awesome to see. But they're both mostly pass blocker or run blockers. But I think Darnell is going to get more and more involved at the middle of the field, being more and more involved. And Ben Skoranek's got a place on this team, man. And I think he is. I think Ben Skoranek is a good part to have on this team. I really, really do. I look at him as another Miles Boykin, but maybe a little bit better. Russ for $33 million over 4 years. My only problem here is the 4 years. That's a long time. You're 40 years old. Everybody's watching Aaron Rodgers right now going, oof. Big Ben at the end of his thing, everybody knew it was got to be the end. You just don't want to hit that spot. Now, if nothing's guaranteed at the back end, great, that's fine, depending on how you situate it. But I also think 2 years is like the sweet spot of like, okay, in 2 years, maybe we could sign another 1 year deal and go from there. But that gives you enough time to draft a quarterback right now. Think about the future, possibly bring Justin Fields back. It just makes more sense. $33 million over 4 years. I mean, $33 million a year is a lot of money, but I don't think you're wrong there that he could make that type of money. I think we need to sign Xavier Howard at corner. Xavier Howard still has a lot left in the tank from what I've been told from people out in Miami. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to touch him with a 10-foot pole after the offseason stuff that he was, he had against him, the allegations he had against him. But I think he's still got a lot left in the tank. I know we're interested in how the Steelers are doing, but how are you doing today? Hey, I appreciate it, man. This is awesome. I'm doing all right, man. I'm hanging in there. I say every day is a good day that you woke up. You know what I mean? I'm feeling blessed that I get to be here, excited about it. Do got a sick cat, got some tough news on that front, and we're working our way through it. But I appreciate all you guys. You guys make the day better every single day. Think the Steelers trade Minka this offseason. I think it makes sense, but that's not a move the Steelers make. Like, the Steelers are not the team that are going to trade a guy in his prime before he gets out of his prime. That's just not what happens. Minka's a Steeler. I don't think it could happen. I think it maybe should happen. I think it makes sense to happen. I'm not going to say it should happen. I think it makes sense if the Steelers chose to go that route, but I have a hard time believing they're going to. All right, and we'll finish it. We'll finish it off with. I got to find a good one. Somebody toss me a good question here. We need one more good question. All right, we'll finish it off with this one. Will George Pickens have more touchdowns or personal fouls this week? I'll give you a bold prediction for George Pickens, and it's a positive bold prediction because I'm telling you, I think George Pickens is phenomenal. I think I think he's got his head in the right spot. I think his emotions need some tweaking. I'd say in George Pickens, 195 yards, 3 touchdowns this week. If he's on your fantasy football team, put him in that starting lineup. Do not take him out. Don't even think about it. I'm saying he lights this world on fire. He is the AFC Player of the Week come Tuesday. And I see a big, massive game for Mr. George Pickens this week. And I guess we'll finish it off with this one. How long before Nick Herbig surpasses Alex Highsmith, dude just makes plays? I don't think he ever surpasses him. Alex Highsmith, when he's out there, is a freak every single time. There's no lull with Alex Highsmith. I think Alex Highsmith's still the guy. Nick Herbig's the dude to come off the bench and be the guy there. It's you can, and the words of Mike Tomlin today, you can't have enough rushmen. So that's where the Steelers are. They'll feel all good about him, but I don't think Nick Herbig passes Alex Highsmith. Alex Highsmith is elite, my friend. He is very, very good and very underrated as well. All right. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here, or I am heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of my work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. And with me, I'm saying Mr. Producer Nick Belsky. Excited to have him back on the show. And I know you guys are just as excited. Thanks for keeping me company these past couple of days. And with that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.